The relationship between men and mental health has often been called a silent crisis. On this podcast, we're breaking the silence. Welcome to Mental Health. It's time to talk. Here's your host, Allan Kehler.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. On this episode, we have an author. We have the sports columnist with the Regina Leader-Post. We have a man who gave himself permission to be vulnerable, who put his struggles with mental illness for thousands of people to read. We have the one, we have the only Rob Vanstone. Rob, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Welcome to my bedroom. I look rather leisurely. My wife insisted that she have access to the television, and this is where I got banished to, my bedroom, my lonely little bedroom. So this may be very cathartic for me tonight, Allan. I hope you got 14 hours because I might need it. So.
Oh my. Well, hey, thanks for setting the tone. And speaking of your wife, Rob, I remember reading that you have found your dream job, of which you have spent over 30 years at, and then you played it very smoothly, and you said that you also found your dream wife. Well done, Rob.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky. I was pretty lucky there to totally understate that one. I met my dream wife while at my dream job. I met her at a hockey game in Moose Jaw on November 14th, 1994. Well, actually, we just crossed paths for the first time that night, and 2.5 years later, I asked her out. Really got on that one quickly. So it was just a one fluke after another, like one of those 1 in 1 million chances over and over and over and over again. It just, if I took you through a timeline of this, you'd just say that, one of these things happening is very improbable, but just, it's just a bunch of flukes that all worked out in my favor. I used up that's why I've not won a 50-50 draw or a lottery or even a door prize since then, because I used up all my good luck back in 1997.
Makes sense. Well,
it's all gone.
Rob, I'm very curious. Why was it for you, after all of those years of hiding, and I mean, years ago,
like hiding in the bedroom, like I'm doing now?
Yeah. But I mean, you didn't even share your own inner struggles with mental health with your wife. And so why was it that you finally decided, okay, let's just put it all out there? And by the way, you didn't just put it out there for a few people. You put it out there for thousands.
Yeah, if I have that many readers, maybe it was just a few people. It kind of, there wasn't really one kind of landmark moment or landmark occurrence that made that happen. It just sort of built and built and built, and I kept it inside myself for so long. When the 2 years that I was dealing with depression, and it's at the absolute worst that I've confronted it, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell my best friend. The two people I think and I didn't tell my mom. I still wouldn't tell my mom if she were here today, because she would worry too much, and I don't want to. My mom had blood pressure issues, and I just didn't want to make my mom worry. So I probably wouldn't tell her strategically. But there were the people I think who were the most well-positioned and the most well-intentioned were kept out of the discussion, because I was worried that people would think I was weird or just a mess or too much of a burden, or they'd be ashamed of me. And it bothers me that I ever had that perception, but your judgments get so clouded when mental health just overwhelms you. And it's just little, it's just little steps that kind of took me toward it. Once I told one person, it became easier to tell another person. And then it was easy. I kind of dipped my toe in the water and mentioned it on Facebook one time. And then, a friend reached out, and I found out that more and more people I know actually have this. So I confided in more of them. And then people I would interview, it just so happened, and maybe I was more attuned to it. But over the last 2 or 3 years, I found I was interviewing a few people who were talking openly about their mental health, including one who was then in grade 12 at Belfort Collegiate in Regina named Paige Haman. She was a basketball player. And she talked to her about her mental health to the entire school assembly in grade 12, something I couldn't have done when I was 54 years old, 55 years old. And so I talked to another number of people who were very open about it. And I think they kind of gave me, without doing so explicitly, they gave me permission to do it. And they showed me that it can be done and you can talk about these things. You can be vulnerable in public. And I realized how much those people helped me. And whether it's Alicia Dorwart or Paige Haman or Danny Ledrew, Bryn Latimer, they're just J.J. Elliott. A number of people were really helpful to me, and just by doing it and showing me that it can be done. So I thought, okay, well, they've helped me. Can I use my forum to help other people? And eventually, it just became a bigger issue than just me talking about it. It's what can I do to help some other people and give back, because I know some people did that for me, and I know even in the last year or so when I've dealt, whether it was on Facebook or Instagram, on my own social media with kind of a hand-picked audience, there were people who had struggled and reached out to me, even with things like type 2 diabetes. One friend of mine was worried that it was about to hit him, and I shared with him my exercise and diet log. My wife's totally responsible for the diet. Mm-hmm. And basically his blood sugar went down 2 points and he was no longer pre-diabetic. And so I realized, I can help people here. And it felt so great to help him. And I thought, this mental health thing is such a monster. And it's now more fashionable to talk about it. And Let's Talk Day was coming up. I just thought everything I've dealt with in the past 14, 15 months and been able to overcome a lot of it, I thought now's the time to talk about it. I almost did it a year ago, but I was in a far better place this year. Not entirely, confident that it would go smoothly, but I think I was ready to take that plunge. I think I needed to do it. And I'm so glad I did. I still have all the emails I received from people after that. There's close to 200. There's a file on my desktop called Let's Talk, and I've moved every one of those emails in there.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful to hear that there was that kind of a positive response. What was it like for you, Rob, January 28th, which was Bell Let's Talk Day 2021? What was it like that morning when you woke up and you knew that everything was going to be put out there? How did that feel for you? Well,
it's almost in reverse, Allan, because I could finally go to sleep. I couldn't sleep that night. I never did wake up. And because I never gave myself a chance to clock out, I was tossing and turning and reading, and I was really wondering, what have I done? There's no going back now. It occurred to me about 8 o'clock the previous night. The paper's on the press now. Like, there's no turning back. It's on midnight. Well, they're about to put it on the truck, and I just felt, what have I opened myself up to? Because I didn't control the audience anymore. With Instagram or Facebook, I have to approve everybody who follows me or befriends me. So I think I know, to an extent, you're preaching to the choir in that case, but you just never know. And I knew deep down that if somebody really wanted to hurt me, they could do it, because I don't have much of a firewall anymore. Things that never used to stress me out do now. And as much progress as I think I've made, I still know that it's kind of a cellophane layer sometimes of protection. So I was just wondering, are there haters out there? I know I've got detractors. I understand why they detract, but I just thought, what am I opening myself up to here? Is there going to be a barrage of negativism and bile? I just wasn't sure, because I was 56 years old. It's something I'd never done before. So who knows? And to this point, I've not had one comment that hasn't been positive. And if I get some now that aren't, I've got an army of people I know who are behind me. Not a very big army, maybe like the Togo army as opposed to Canada or the United States, but there's at least a miniature regiment of people who are now in that folder in on my desktop. And if I need reinforcement, they're all there, and they always will be, because I'm not going to delete those emails, and I'm not going to forget any of those great people.
That's incredible. The thing that stood out for me the most, Rob, I remember reading that article and you said that it had become the most liberating thing that you had ever done. And when I had interviewed all those men, that was the most common theme, because darkness begs to see the light of day. Yes.
Yeah, and I never realized, Allan, it was almost, 10 years ago, I was hiding antidepressants from my wife. And then I couldn't remember where I hid them, because my clever place was behind books on a bookshelf, on one of our old bookshelves. And I keep moving them around, and I kind of lost track of what book they were. Was it behind fiction or nonfiction, right? Was it behind Stephen King? Which author was it buried behind? So there were times I was like pulling books out of the bookshelf, trying to remember where I put my pills. And so that's kind of where I was. But I likened it to taking out the garbage, where I think I'd made some steps in the past year. My mom died December 11th of 2019. And 2.5 months after that, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And then within a month of that, there was a pandemic. I mean, just an absolute roll I was on. And yet I came out of that. I lost 100 pounds. I felt the best summer of my life, and I've never felt better. I weigh less now than I did in high school. So I did some things that I think put myself in position to be able to deal with that from final hurdle, which is resolving some of the demons and some of the mental issues that I've been facing. And over the past year, as I lost weight and I felt I was able to do some more things, and I talked about it more openly on my own social media, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, and interacted with more people about that topic. It was like imagine a living room or a bedroom full of garbage bags, not unlike the bedroom I'm sitting in right now. And one by one, you take those garbage bags, some of them that have like 15-year-old tuna in them, to the disposal bin. And so I was at the point, I think, come late last year, early this year, where maybe there were just 3 or 4 garbage bags left, but I had to get rid of them. As I threw each of them in the bin over the year, figuratively, my wife will confirm that I haven't taken out the garbage as much as I should in actuality. I just felt better. And so I thought, I'm just going to get rid of the rest of the garbage. And suddenly it was all gone. And as of January 20th, I didn't have a secret in the world. There wasn't anything that I'd ever talked about or felt that I didn't feel that I could just put on Twitter. It was just so liberating not to be hiding anything from anybody. Even though the people closest to me all knew by then, I thought it was an important hurdle to overcome. There's nothing, if I had a cold, I wouldn't be ashamed to go on Twitter and put, I have a cold, I need some cold FX, please deliver, if I'd broken my leg, 13 years ago, I fractured an ankle playing touch football. And I had no problem telling people and even writing in the paper, I have a fractured ankle. But I had a fractured brain. And for a while, I was stigmatized by it. But it's no different. In fact, it's worse. I knew at one point in October 2007 that my ankle, as much as it was swollen, was going to heal. There's a timetable for that. It's well established. You can put ice on it. You can elevate it. You can also elevate your stress, and that's much more difficult to alleviate. And I'm not sure it ever entirely goes away. Once you have that susceptibility, it's always there. And I feel really good right now, but I also know that there's little triggers out there that I may not even imagine right now that could always tee it off. And that's where it's important to have that support system. And by speaking about or writing about it as widely as I could, I just realize now I have a support system that I never knew existed. And it's all in those emails. I could email any one of those people right now. And it's nice to know that people I've never met have my back. So that was liberating. It was really cool. And people were so amazing. And I'm so grateful to them.
Yeah, just to be done with the shame, done with the guilt, and to have that clean slate. There's a comment here from Shauna Robb, and she says, "You're amazing for talk about it. It's helping others. You're helping me. And it's just validation of what you're doing." And I know, Rob, that one of the men that you came across who was sharing his story, Clint Malarchuk, who's become a good friend of mine, you were I think it was probably in Yorkton, yes. And
Yeah.
he actually flipped the table and said to 3 different reporters, "Have you ever been depressed?" And you knew it was coming to you.
Oh, because I was number 3 on the list,
Yeah.
and that was such a turning point, and I never expected it. But there's 3 of us interviewing Clint Malarchuk, and he looks at the reporter on the far right and says, "Have you ever been depressed?" And she says no. Looks at the one in the middle and says, "Have you ever been depressed?" And he says no. And I remember just feeling my not inconsiderable stomach sink. It's just like, oh no, here it comes. And it would have been easy to say no. Nobody would have even thought anything of it, except I didn't want to lie. And not only that, my godson, who was then the Yorkton Terriers director of marketing and public relations, Eric Anderson, he was in the room. He'd set up this media session. So had I said no, what kind of godfather am I? Eric would have known right away that I just lied about it. And I don't lie anyway, but I'm sure not going to lie in front of my godson. So I said yes. And just by saying yes, I felt like a lot of baggage had already gotten on the highway and headed back to Regina. And it was so liberating to say yes. And he goes, "Are you on medication?" He goes, "Are you on antidepressants?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm on escitalopram." And blah, 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 blah. So we started talking about antidepressants, and not extensively, but I engaged with him on that topic. And suddenly I realized I just told 3 complete strangers that I have mental illness, and nobody bit me. The lightning did not strike. I did not keel over. I can do this. And that was a really unexpected yet crucial turning point for me. And just a simple yes. I say yes, it feels good. My wife says yes, she gets stuck with marrying me. It doesn't always work for everybody.
So that was really for you, Rob, the catalyst, like when things started to snowball and you realized, okay, there's something to this, to give yourself permission to put a voice to that.
Yeah, that's the first time I'd done it in terms of telling anybody that I didn't know. And I've always been pretty honest about things, yet I had this huge secret and it would just chew me up. I mean, I had a panic attack, one panic attack at the 2010 Olympics in Whistler, and I had another one on when I got back from Whistler. I had one in an optometrist chair the next day, and I ended up going to the doctor, getting meds. And at that point, the only person in the world who knew that I was on meds was my doctor and maybe the pharmacist. And I remember thinking, oh no, what is it? This pharmacist knows, right? And your mind gets very conspiratorial, and there's no judgment. It's all gone when you're in this morass of negativism and lack of hope. You're just so far gone, you can't even see things with a clear perspective. And that's the kind of rut I was in. And to go from that to, just over 4 years ago now, to be able to say that it wasn't the start of it. I had to do some things to fix the rest of me, I think, to really ignite other things, because I was just so kind of embarrassed by what I looked like, how I felt. I was so overweight. I mean, the good news is I lost 100 pounds. The bad news is that I needed to. And so once I started doing that and felt better about myself and wasn't just sitting around thinking, well, I'm 56 years old and my dad died of a heart attack when he was 61 and I'm really fat, and what time? Oh, good. The drive-thru is open for 24 hours. So instead of just kind of sticking with those habits that were so destructive, I was able to change things around, and to juxtapose that with the absolute misery that I went through after my mom died, which led to stress eating like I've never eaten before. I can't imagine what my blood sugar was like. It was like, it must have been astronomical. And to be able to see within a week or two of the diagnosis that I could do something about it if I just took action and resolved to change my life, that was positive too. Just to see, I talked about all the garbage bags being discarded. At that point, it was just like flicking lights on at City Hall one by one at night, and they gradually start coming on. And each day you go for a walk, or each day your blood sugar is not 12.2, it's 5.3. That's another light getting flicked on. It might be a big building, but each time the light gets flicked on, it feels so much better. And by a couple of months after I was diagnosed, I was actually glad I was diagnosed because it made me do something about it.
Right.
And I've just kept doing things about it. This is another step in that direction. Just talking about it like we're talking about, what are you doing for dinner tonight? It's just a casual conversation. It just happens to be about something very dire, or that can be.
Yeah. Well, Rob, you've alluded to that proverbial bottom a few times. I mean, after your mother had passed, and then I think you were somewhere around 263 pounds, right? You're having trouble walking a short distance. So for you and for anyone else who's out there kind of at that place, not sure whether or not they can continuously pull through, how were you able to pick yourself up from that spot that you were in?
Well, it's important to marry well, which takes us right back to the early part of this conversation. Without my wife, you may be interviewing a mahogany box right now. I don't know if I could have gotten through this without my wife. I can't imagine how lucky. I don't know what I did to deserve being so lucky to have someone who would pretty much take charge of things the way she has, knowing that at one point I was just too weak physically, mentally, emotionally to do it. And it wasn't an instantaneous adjustment. There was three or four days of absolute shameless self-pity. I basically laid in bed and just stared at the ceiling and just like, my mom is dead and now I've got type 2 diabetes. And just felt so sorry for myself. All I did was basically watch The Briar every day. Thank goodness for Vic Rauter. Thank goodness for Matt Dunstone. But I felt so sick because I weaned myself completely off everything I had been eating and drinking, not alcohol, but just, hey, 2-liter bottle of pop gone, and that's breakfast. So I just kind of gradually felt better. There was like 3 or 4 days where I was just sort of in. It's like I cashed a check from my mom's estate the other day. It was like $30,000 from her estate, and I deposited it in the bank. And it needed 4 or 5 days to clear before it went into my account. I needed 4 or 5 days to clear before I could even look at things even semi-rationally, to the point where my wife was able to coax me to go outside for a walk. I thought she was just going to let me outside and then shut the door and hope I'd freeze. But she just little baby steps. A 10-minute walk seemed amazing at that point. But once I noticed some progress, even minute progress, incremental progress, then I thought, okay, I can do this. And you need somebody. I don't think I could have done it by myself. I guess the lesson there is, there's always somebody who's going to reach out to help you, even if it's somebody you don't know. There's numbers you can call if you're absolutely at a loss for what to do or anyone to talk to. There's always someone to call. And so do it. Take advantage of the resources that are there to help people who are dealing with mental health issues. And there's a lot more than there were 10, 20, 30 years ago, when it wasn't even talked about. So, my wife deserves as much, if not more, credit than I do. All I have to do is pick up a fork or a spoon. She spends the time. She shops for the groceries. She prepares the meals. I eat them and then resume doing podcasts with Allan, Kehler and enjoying it. So that's of all the great things I've derived from being married to my wife. She basically saved my life. And you need great people around you. And I've been inordinately blessed there.
You definitely need that support around you. You also have to want the change yourself. And I love the fact, Rob, that you took action, literally step by step. And now you have made sure that physical activity is something that is part of your daily life. You're well over, I don't know, what are you at, Rob? Like 380 odd days straight of physical activity?
I think I just did my plan is I need at least a half hour of physical activity every day. So today was 378. So I got a 30-minute walk in, not long before supper, not long before this. So 30-minute walk, I went 16 feet. It was really triumphant. But it doesn't have to be anything. It's like a lot of people say, oh, gee, all these days in a row that you've exercised. Yeah, but I mean, last night I went for a swim for 20 minutes. And tonight I went for a short walk. It's not like I'm doing these amazing, feats of cardio or anything, or lifting Volkswagens. It's pretty casual stuff that anybody can do. You don't have to join a gym. You don't have to have muscles, as I have proven. It can just be something that I sweated more, and I kid you not, I sweated more when I was told that I had type 2 diabetes than I have in any single form of exercise, during any single form of exercise over 378 days in a row since being diagnosed. Because as soon as the doctor mentioned diabetes, it was Niagara Falls. And there was a box of tissues right on the little, by the examination table. And I was basically picking them up, putting it to my forehead. It would turn to pulp. And then I was just instantly, just using these tissues to try and damp or stop the perspiration, because it was just a waterfall. I freaked out. And I've had 3 bike rides that went at least 100 kilometers last summer. I didn't sweat nearly as much on any of those as I did in the 5 minutes after I was told I had type 2 diabetes, because I just freaked out. I haven't done anything really that complex. It's been pretty simple. It hasn't been that strenuous. I'm too old to do anything strenuous. So I think it's stuff that anybody can do. You don't need a Peloton. You don't need a treadmill. I'd like to have a dog. That's the next goal. I want a dog. So if any Scottish Terrier breeders out there,
okay,
send me a note. That's
right.
the final step in the comeback for me is to get a dog. If I could share with you sort of a thing I learned about how powerful and counterproductive the brain is. I don't know if is it okay if I mention this, or would you?
Oh, you let her rip, Rob.
I had not lived in my condo for 5 years because I was convinced that I was having an allergic reaction to something in it. And we had all sorts of tests done. I had allergy tests done by allergists in Saskatoon and Winnipeg and Regina, everywhere. And I was living in my mother's spare bedroom for the better part of 5 years because something in my place was getting to me. And eventually I went to an allergist in October, and he ran all the allergy tests. I didn't test positive for anything. And he goes, I don't think you have an allergy. I think you have a short circuit in your brain. And he referred me to a clinical psychologist named Dr. Tom Robinson, who I first saw in November. And he said his hypothesis was that I have a health anxiety. And I said, but I go into my home and within an hour, my face is blowing up. And he goes, work me through some exercises. And it turns out that it was my mind, such as it is, inducing an allergic type reaction, because I was basically talking myself into one. Fear was triggering all these physiological reactions. I didn't have an allergy, but because I convinced myself I did, it manifested itself with my face swelling up and feeling asthma type symptoms. And 20 years ago, we got rid of our dog because we thought I was allergic to him. We had him for a year and a half, and we have to give him away. And now I'm wondering, could we have kept Elway if my mind hadn't been so powerful? So we want to take another shot at it. And later, sometime this year, we want to get a Scottish Terrier. And I'm hoping that'll be the final step. The only thing that's still bugging me is I don't have a dog. And if I can have a dog and live with a dog and be happy with a dog, I might never leave Regina again. I'll just sit around with my dog and watch football and take him to the park. And we picked out a name for him. We have a bowl. We have a bowl down on the floor by the kitchen for him. We just need a dog to drink out of the bowl. So
that's remarkable. The power of the mind. Hey.
Oh my goodness, Allan. It's amazing. Not long after my mom died, and we were talking about, I was thinking about moving into my mom's, I can't live in my own condo. We'll just move into her condo and we'll sell ours. And I was laying in bed at mom's place one night and I thought, wouldn't it just be my luck if I somehow got allergic to something in my mom's condo? Within 10 minutes, I was itching and my eyes were swelling up. Within the next day, I was going home from work, getting to the condo. My face was just, my tongue would feel all tingly. And that's just because one night laying in bed in December 2019, I thought, wouldn't it be just my luck if? And the mind takes over. It's so powerful. And I had people tell me that before. I didn't believe it. I thought there's no way the mind can trigger a symptom such as the one I was experiencing. But that's exactly what happened with my home. So I spent $40,000 to allergy proof my home. And it was just, it's my brain. It can be your greatest ally. It can be your worst enemy. And
100%.
sometimes the white hat and the black hat are kind of fighting with one another. And who knows which side is going to prevail sometimes.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you've been able to take your power back and regain control. Daniel chimes in here, Rob. He says, telling my story and sharing my truth is the most therapeutic thing I have ever done for my mental health. And that's just it. It's that power of the story. And if there's anybody, Rob, who wants to just connect with you, I know you're out there on social media, or maybe some of the things that you said just resonates, or maybe they have that dog for you. How could they potentially get a hold of you?
Please do. My email address is rvanstone@postmedia.com. It's RVANSTONE @postmedia.com. Please feel free to email me. I'm on Twitter at Rob Vanstone, and tweet me. I'll tweet you back, and I'll send you my email address or whatever. I mean, so many people have come through for me. You being one of them. Just being able to talk about this so frankly and expansively. That's another step forward for me. So if there's anybody I can help, or there's anybody out there who feels they can help me, or anybody like to give me a discount on a Scottish Terrier, I'm happy to do it, because I recognize now how much people not only helped me, but how much they would have wanted to once upon a time. I suffered for so long, to the point where I wasn't just feeling glum. I wasn't just feeling gloomy. It induced physical pain. I never realized that you get in such a rut where there's just the nerves in everywhere are just kind of on fire. I'd get pains down my arms and discomfort between my shoulder blades. And I was clenching my teeth, clenching my jaw all the time, just because of anxiety. And I'd wake up, and everything would kind of calm down when I'd wake up, or when I'd be asleep. And then I'd wake up, and there'd be that split second before my body realized what's wrong, that I'm not supposed to feel good. And then I could just feel it going whoosh, and all the nerves like turning on. And it was just like, and I'd feel this tidal wave of physical pain, and I'd be carrying that with me every day. And I didn't need to, even thinking something like going to a counselor once upon a time. I could never bring myself to do that. I finally did in 2014. It was a bad experience. I vowed I'd never do it again. I saw 3 counselors. I've seen 3 counselors in the past 2 years have been amazing. And, but you gotta take that plunge. And there's people that emailed me after the story appeared in January. One of them told me she hasn't told her husband, but she's going to. Somebody else said, I've been meaning to seek counseling, but I felt scared to. I'm going to. And then he sent me a note the next day saying, I made an appointment. And these people are miracle workers. Dr. Tom Robinson has basically saved my way of life. The man is a genius. And whether it's Tom Robinson, whether it's Karen Fleck of Karen Fleck Counseling Services, whether it's Leonard Zachidniak of Morneau Chappelle, those 3 people since January 2019 have done so much for me. I was seeing counselors before my mom died. Afterwards, I mean, you could have put me in a jar and just handed me to a taxi driver, and he could have taken me over there. I was just such an absolute mess. And what people have done for me since then, whether it's the counselors or the uncompensated therapists, such as the Legion of Friends, my wife, I cannot be more grateful for so many people helping me through it. And I'm so glad that I finally helped myself. And if I can help one person, in return, Dr. Tom Robinson, my clinical psychologist, I thought he should bill me more. I've never tried to talk anybody up, but it's like, that's all, really? You've done so much for me. Like, I should give you my car. Well,
you could.
Well, it's a 1973 Montego. So okay. I said, like, you're basically stealing from you here. Shouldn't I pay you more? And he goes, just do something nice for somebody. What an amazing man he is. And so I'm trying to do, I think I was predisposed to do that anyway, but I think I'm a little more cognizant of it now, that somebody's done me a huge turn and saved my way of life a year ago, I just thought getting below 250 pounds was a big deal. I thought riding my bike for an hour was a big deal. I never thought I'd have a dog again. And now I keep looking at pictures of Scottish Terriers on Instagram, and I want that one. No, I want that one. And I almost talked my wife into actually going to the Humane Society on March 13th and getting this little dog I saw on Instagram. I just fell in love with this little dog. It wasn't a Scottie, but his name was Walter, and I wanted to adopt Walter instantly. And so I said, no, wait, we have to stick to the plan. And so I think the plan is that she's going to adopt the dog and put me up for adoption.
Okay.
So, we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, well, keep us posted, Rob, with how that all unfolds. It's so true, though. The risk leads to reward, and you had to be incredibly vulnerable to receive the numerous rewards. And you have, Rob, made an incredible impact through your writing, through the way that you shared your story. You have my deepest respect and admiration. The ripple effect is profound, and it will only continue to go on. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, Rob.
Oh, Allan, thank you. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you. Thanks for all you do to help people deal with these. I'd love to come on again at some point if you'll have me. And I hope to have a little wriggly black ink blot named Joey on my lap.
Joey.
Who will bark at you and perhaps leave his autograph on me while I'm holding him. So if we can do this again in the fall, I can't promise that I'll probably look worse than I do right now, but there'll be this most adorable little black creature who will just make my life even better than it is today. And I'm glad to look at things with optimism as opposed to, oh gee, which am I going to wake up and it's like I was waking up. It's like, am I going to get hit by a truck or a bus today? Right. And now I feel like I'm driving the vehicle. That's a bad metaphor and it's really tacky, but that's where my life is right now.
Well, I'm proud of you, Rob. I'm very happy for you. I look forward to seeing where you choose to take life from this point forward. And thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to tune in. Take care and be well.